What's up everyone? Happy 2023. I can't believe it's February already and I literally haven't posted a video since last year. For everyone that's still here, thank you so much. The last art DIY video that I posted was actually on my living room art piece that you can see right here. I did like the results and how it turned out, but I definitely think that I can do better. And since this is the only art that's up on the walls in the living room, I want it to be amazing. Since then, I have actually seen this technique by this artist right here. I really like how she uses the bed sheet with joint compound or spackle plaster. Right after I saw this, I knew that I had to try it, especially since I already had almost all of the materials. So for this video today, I'm gonna take this current painting and try this technique out, film it all for you and show you my whole process. If you didn't watch my previous art DIY, I actually made this piece right here for under $50 using not the best quality materials. I think where I definitely went wrong with this one is I did the finishing coat of paint with interior wall paint instead of just like regular acrylic paint. So it covered up a lot of the texture that I took so much time making. As you can see, this canvas is super thin. It was also really cheap, like under $20. It's not matted into a wooden frame or anything. So that's why I also want to try this kind of 3D art. So it makes the texture on the canvas pop out more, and then you can't really tell how low quality this canvas is. To get started, I placed a flat sheet over a table and then put the canvas face down on top of it. Then I just tried to map out how much of the sheet I was going to need. So I basically just started tucking the sides underneath the wooden part of the canvas on the back of it. And then I had my boyfriend actually help me staple it down wherever I tucked it, just because his power stapler, whatever, was kind of difficult to use. I definitely think this would have been easier if I pre-cut the fabric ahead of time, but I just wanted to make sure there was going to be enough give on the other side. So here we are, just taking a box cutter and cutting the excess fabric off. And now I'm just going back and tucking in all of the edges that were left out after we cut the fabric. Now I flip the canvas back over and I'm just trying to map out like my pattern and what my design would be, and overall just making sure I have enough fabric to work with. So here are the initial products that I started out with. The main one is this all-purpose joint compound, and I don't know why, but I thought it would be a smart idea to mix the joint compound with this old bucket of spackle that I had laying around, and I quickly learned that was a huge mistake. A lot of the dried spackle was just super clumpy and really hard to mix, so moved it to this new bucket, and then at this point I'm just eyeballing this mixture. So I started with just water and the joint compound, and then here I am adding white wood glue, and I'm just working with those three components first, trying to get the best consistency. I actually learned from Nicolina's tutorial that the glue helps a ton with cracking, and then she also adds salt to her mix to help with preservation. The only prep that I did to the canvas was spray it down with water, and then I just went straight on with the mixture. At first I was just dipping the brush into the bucket and then painting it on, but this definitely took some arm muscle. My wrist was getting super tired when I was trying to be thorough, but I ended up just taking the bucket and pouring the mixture straight onto the canvas and then spreading it out. This helped speed up the process for sure, but I still think I needed a bigger brush since this was such a big canvas. I didn't end up painting the underneath with the mixture because this sheet was so thin. I figured it was just going to seep through and kind of do that work for me. Continuing with the pouring method, I finally ditched the brush and just started using my hands. I highly recommend just starting out and doing this if you are going to attempt this project as well. This was so much easier to just smooth it over the fabric and make sure every nook and cranny is filled. And now I was starting to set the pattern on the canvas. I think I could have left a little bit more sheet to work with. There wasn't as much give to create a design, but I still think it came out pretty good considering. And this is how the canvas looked a few hours later. Most of it was dry, but there were still some spots that were wet. So I definitely wanted to leave it till it was 100% dry. It was really hard to not go in and just retouch up some of the areas, especially ones like this where you can clearly see the fabric is not covered, but I wanted to wait till it was fully dry before I added another coat, mainly to prevent cracking. So here it is the next morning, finally completely dry. You can tell that it's super uneven, pretty bumpy. So I had to do a lot of correcting on this one. I initially started out with this pretty small old makeup brush that I had, and I was basically just doing a ton of detail work, trying to smooth out all of the bumps and the unevenness. This part was definitely the trickiest, kind of going along the grooves and the wrinkles in the fabric. I'm using the same exact mixture that I used initially. I'm gonna link her mixture down below for you guys, but obviously I tweaked mine a little bit. She uses spackle and I use joint compound. So besides that, the mixture is pretty much the same. Now I just kept going with this small detail brush to get all of those kind of bends and folds in the fabric, but I slowly realized that there was so much unevenness, like right here. You can clearly see like the stripes in the fabric more apparent in this patch compared to like right next to it. So I started to focus on basically like filling in all the areas that I kind of missed in the foundational coat, and also over the ridges like I'm doing right here. And then I didn't get this part on film, but Devin ended up helping me with the more smooth and flat areas with a bigger brush, and then I just kind of went over everything with detailing. But finally I got it done, and then here is how it looked the next day. You can see that there was some cracking. It wasn't super severe, but there was definitely cracking, so I knew that for this next layer I had to go even thinner with the mixture, and this is the consistency that you want right here. So same process. This time though, I took an even bigger detailing brush, not too much bigger. You can kind of see the difference right here, and just did the same thing. Just tried to refill in the gaps that were a bit uneven, and just honestly do a straight coat over everything and fill in the cracks. I feel like you can really see how that last coat evened and smoothed everything out. Of course, it's not perfect, but I was definitely starting to tell that my work was going to be worth it. It was kind of hard to envision it, of course, in the process, but once it dried, each coat just got better and better. I definitely think the glue in the mixture helped with the cracking. I read after the fact that she doesn't use joint compound because it cracks a lot easier, so I kind of added a lot more of that white wood glue to the mix. And you can see from this second coat dried, it was a lot smoother, less cracking. Of course, there was still some small cracks here and there, but it was a lot better. So the main reason I ended up using this joint compound was because I got this huge box on Facebook Marketplace for free, y'all. I highly suggest checking on there for any DIYs because you can come up on such good deals. Anyways, this is me mixing the third and final coat right here. Same products that I've used this whole time, but I just added a lot more water to this mixture, and this is the consistency of my final coat. So same process. This one was the easiest by far. All of the grooves and ridges were completely dry, so I used this bigger brush to just go over everything one last time, and I could really see everything coming together. It was so satisfying to see all of the stripes covered and gone and just left with a super white finish. There wasn't really any more correcting to be done. This was mainly to give a nice base before I painted it. And if the product ever started to dry out while I was working, I would just go over it and spray it with a water bottle just to re-wet it down and give me a little bit more time to work on whatever area I was on. I think I could have done another coat or two if I really wanted to be a perfectionist, but this already took 3 days and I just wanted to wrap this up, especially because I still had to paint. So I only stuck with 3 coats and I let them dry 24 hours in between. Last day of the project. Here is how that third coat dried. If I wanted to be a huge perfectionist, I could have went over it one more time, but I think 3 coats was good enough, especially since this was taking so long and I just wanted to be done. There was minimal cracking and I didn't think I was gonna have to sand this, but I still went in and kind of smoothed out any bumpy areas and filled in those minimal cracks that were still left over. You don't have to do this, it's definitely optional. I just chose to so the paint would glide over smoothly. Here's Devin mixing up the paint that I used. It was just like an off-white eggshell interior paint, and I used that initial chip brush that I started out with to put this final coat on here. I don't think I would use this next time because the bristles were pretty cheap. Like they would kind of shed when I was painting and it'd be annoying. I'd have to remove the little hairs, but I think it did the job fairly well. I only ended up doing 1 coat of paint because the consistency was super thick. I don't know if it was because it was an old can or that was just how it was meant to be, but it went on super thick, and I also wasn't sure whether it was gonna be matte or shiny, so I just ended up playing it safe and just doing 1 coat. I know I can always go back over it with a second coat if I decide to, and add some water to the mix to thin it out. Once it fully dried, I had Devin help me screw on this wire because adding the joint compound did make it a little bit heavier as well. So having something like this made it so much easier to put it up on the wall. And the moment we've all been waiting for, here is the finished piece. I was super happy that the paint did dry down matte, and this was the direction that I decided to hang it up. I still wish this was a bit more 3D than it came out, but overall, I think it does look a lot better than what I started out with. Don't worry, I will be keeping this up on the wall, and I'm satisfied with how this looks. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this one as much as I did making it. Let me know in the comments what you think I should try out next.